Hey guys, welcome to the Property Panel Podcast. You got myself, Jalen Hardcastle here, and then of course we got Silent Bob.
Silent Bob and Jay.
Jay and Silent Bob, here we are at your service, at your real estate service. Anytime you need us, give us a call.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And today we're going to be talking about the market. So everybody seems to ask the same question, which I know you get it, I get it. What's the market going to do? Is it going to crash? What's the interest rates going to look like? What are the prices going to look like? And we kind of do these videos every so often, but I think it's time that we tap back into it and let you guys know what we think's going on. And that way you can decide what you want to do, whether you want to buy or sell. Still think it's a pretty good time to do so. But
For sure.
I guess we're going to dive into this episode and dive into our title sponsor for the episode. Big shout out to Collier Title Company. If you need deed prep, title work, closings, and more, they're located in Brandenburg, E-Town, and Louisville. You can call them at 270-763-6589. And for this week's sponsor, We Buy Houses. We can offer cash and close in as little as 2 weeks. You can call us at 270-945-5416 or 270-945-7189.
Yeah, thank you for that, Josh. And if anyone you know would like to be a weekly, monthly, or yearly sponsor, you can give us a call at either of those numbers he just provided. It's 100 weekly, 300 monthly, 3,000 yearly, and you're advertise on our intros, outros, as well as intermissions on all social media platforms. And it really does a big help to bring you guys the latest and greatest, as well as turn the podcast, and the day-to-day functions that it brings, buying new equipment, buying a new studio. It helps a lot. And if you want to help for free, literally just go hit that like, share, subscribe button, leave a comment of your favorite real estate experience, or maybe, a game episode or a punishment you'd like one of us to do. And we'll look through those and choose the best ones.
Yeah, it's a free way to support. You just click a button, but you can actually get something in return. So when we hit 300 followers on Facebook, we're going to be doing a gift card giveaway, as well as 500 followers. And then over on TikTok, once we hit 100 followers, we will be doing a merch giveaway for Property Panel Podcast, as well as Cedar Hill Properties. So if you want things like coasters or wristbands, maybe T-shirts, go ahead and follow our TikTok and check us out on Facebook.
Yep. And we're getting quite a few views on that TikTok. We've been stagnant a little bit. We're waiting till that 100 follower push to really, start posting again, just kind of building up so we can start posting every day. So that way we do hit those 100 followers. We can continue to provide the best content, for you guys. But I say let's dive into today's episode. Obviously, like me and Josh talk about, we deal with this day in and day out. But obviously everyone, is kind of scared and they're like, I'm going to wait to buy. I think the market's about to go down or something to that extent. Or they're going to wait for interest rates, to go down. And I don't know if, you don't listen to our podcast or what, but those things go hand in hand. And when one drops, the other goes up typically. And when one goes up, the other, pretty much stays at the level playing field for a little bit. And we've had a few people just thinking that we're going to get some all-time lows again like we've seen in 2020, 21. Although I don't think I agree that we're going to see that specific low. They are going to continue to drop as we've seen and anticipated, over the last year. But I don't continue to see them dropping at an alarming rate to see those national average lows again.
Right. And, too, the interest rate hardly ever, drops to 5% or lower.
Mm-hmm.
As far as, history is concerned, back in like 2019, we were at like that 3% maybe. Really, in my opinion, that's unhealthy for the economy in general. It's just a low interest rate. I don't think we'll see that ever again. Maybe, sometime in the future, but it's not something to kind of bank on. 5 to 6%, even a 7% is actually a pretty good interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
All things considered, if you look at the history of things. I guess what really kind of parlays into making that difficult is home prices continue to go up. And that's why, in my opinion, I always tell my clients or my friends, it's my opinion. It's not like I can't predict the future, but, I've had friends ask back in like 2020 after that big hike, should I buy? I'm going to wait for interest rates to come down. I'm going to wait for prices to come down. And it's just not happening.
They hadn't had
and
that.
if they would have bought back then, maybe they would have had a little bit higher of an interest rate, but they probably would have some equity built up by now.
And that's the thing you can look at. We've always even called it, the prices and inflation, they're kind of like a stair step. They're never really going down. We've seen 2 times in recent history that they've ever went down, and not at an alarming rate, but that one time in 2008 market crash, which I'm not going to get into, but it wasn't necessarily the economy, it was more the government and their funding with the banks and all that, which, again, we're not going to get into. But
I don't put it past them, though. I mean, like, really that's what it boils down to.
Yep.
Is the economy and the government. So, we won't, like you said, we won't get into that, but it does boil down to that. So, depending on their decisions is really what dictates the market.
And the answer to me is like me and Josh has always talked about, if the interest rates do drop, to a national average low again, then you should have already bought. And if you have already bought, don't be alarmed, because that's why we say date the rate, marry the house, is because if that house is the right one for you, them interest rates will fluctuate. And, at the time that they do come down to what you're wanting to spend, you can pull out some equity or even, just drop your monthly payment, for literally no reason, just because the interest rates lowered a little bit. So, lock it in, and I'd go ahead, because those price values, as soon as the interest rate lowers, the price value and the market is going to go up, and in 2020, we've seen a national average of about 100,000 is that it increased over just 1 year. Whenever the interest rates reach that 2 to 3, I even had one at a 1.8% interest rate. And I hope they never sell that house. They'd be dumb. But I mean, at this point, they almost, I think they was on a 15-year term because they had a lot of money down. So imagine what they're sitting on now. Yeah, I would. It's a nice home. It's a huge home. It's Shenandoah Valley. So I mean, I would anticipate them to rent it out, and that'd be enough to probably cover their other mortgage that whenever they build or decide to purchase in the near future.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. I feel like if you have, maybe it's a home you've lived in for 10, 20 years and it's paid off, and you plan on moving. There's multiple options. You can either sell and get that lump sum, or alternatively, rent it out. If it's paid off, or maybe your payment's like super low, it'd be worth renting. And then you hire like a property manager like Cedar Hill Properties, and then you don't have to touch it. You just collect your check.
And then, like we said, you could pull out that equity too. Sorry to cut you off, Josh, but also, like if you do get that paid off, you can borrow against it, purchase other investments, and do the same thing, and it kind of creates a domino effect. We always tell everyone, and we hear it a lot, oh, it's so hard to get started, so hard to get started. It is, but once you reach that hump after the first one, it's like a domino effect, and you just keep on, investing, you keep on moving money, you keep on, just liquidating this cash because you set yourself up for success. Where those other people that are scared, they're going to make investments, and it's going to work out for them eventually, because like we've shown over time, prices have continuously gone up. But, where you make your money is in these big increases, whenever the interest rates take a drop. And especially in our area, I don't see our prices going down. I mean, it's like we said, only happened twice on the national average in, 70 years. And then what I think, especially with our economy, we're so centralized to local cities like Louisville, Lexington, Bowling Green, even Nashville and Indianapolis outside of Kentucky that are within 2 hours of reach. With the Ohio River coming through here, we got industrialization like Nucor, the battery factory, the Ford plant, Cosmos, LG&E, RECC. We got huge industrialization, within 30, 45 minutes that is also not including Fort Knox, that is PCS, and here every 2 years bringing, an astronomical amount of buyers, renters, investors alike to our area. So that's why I think we have such a stable economy.
Yeah, I think our area specifically is pretty sheltered. It might not show what the rest of the country's doing. Just because, like you said, we got big industry, big business kind of pulling in. So it's bringing in new population. It's bringing in higher paying jobs. So in return, prices will go up. You look at the difference of prices between like a city like Manhattan and Louisville. It just boils down to what business is being done there and how many people are there.
Right.
And as we're growing with more business, I think our market will stay strong. But I looked up, 2025, Kentucky's real estate market. Year over year, we're up 5 to 9%. So around 260 to 265,000 is the median home price. And then inventory has been rising 10%. So it looks like we're getting more people on the selling end and less people on the buying end slowly. But I think that will kind of correct with summer kind of coming into play.
And I have, to your point, Josh, so the reason I think that, which you can still see that we're getting 5% increase on prices, so the prices aren't necessarily coming down. I think the reason the market's necessarily not as showing as many sales is because those people are still fetching for those higher priced homes. Whereas like now, we don't get 20,000 over list price every single time we list a home. But I tell people, when they list, I tell them a list price. A lot of times they want to go 10,000 over. Even $10,000 hurts your chances of customers walking through the door. I recommend going 10,000 below market value, which we say time and time again. But it'll bring more clients through your door, which create more competition, driving that price up.
Yeah. If you get a bidding war, which back when I started in like the golden era of real estate, so my expectations were through the roof. But there was houses I'd put on the market just at the right price, I guess. And we would get 5 showings day one. Have 4 offers on the table the next
Yep.
day, and it'd be gone really quick. And it's stuff sitting a little bit longer. So if anything, I see if interest rates come down, maybe the price at the very least stabilizing, but I don't see it like dipping super low. Maybe a 1%, 2% drop at most, but I see it at least. It's kind of going like this. I think it's just gonna kind of stable out.
Yeah, and I personally, which, this is why we are great at Cedar Hill Properties, because we have generational experience here, and we all come together. We got investors, lenders, inspectors, other realtors. We are invested in real estate. We're a full service real estate company, so we have competition in all areas of our business, but that's why we do so well and why we succeed is because we come together with our competitors, and we learn from each other, and we set the standard to be the best that all of us can be. And to my point is what I was saying with Josh is I personally think that we've been on that plateau necessarily rather than about to plateau, because with those interest rates coming down, I think we're going to see another little stair step in the next couple of years, where that's the opposite a lot of people have been thinking, and why I think it's such a great deal that we're doing this episode is because I think the common voice is like, hey, it's going to drop.
I'd say overall prices of homes are pretty high, relatively, but
high.
I think it's more so what hurts people is just everything else is high.
Everything.
You go buy groceries, you go buy toilet paper, you go buy gasoline, you go buy food. It's all expensive right now.
And I would be even, I'd bet on to say that the increase in percentage of the common goods and everything went up exponentially more than the increase of home value.
Oh, for sure.
So
yeah.
some things have even doubled over the last 3 or 4 years, whereas home prices have raised at maybe 100%, 50%, rather than 200, 500%.
Right. And if you are trying to figure out if you're trying to buy or rent because you don't know what the market's going to do, I think either way, if we did see a dip, let's say stock markets crash and it affected the housing market too, what goes down also comes up.
That's
just
right.
Like what goes up comes down. And,
Yep.
we're going to keep building that market back up. So if we see that dip, it's only a matter of time before it gets back to where it was and probably higher. But I think really if we can bring inflation down, however that's done, this would help, with a lot of people's,
Right.
Buying a house, affording the mortgage. But either way, with renting versus buying, you're still paying about the same amount, if not more, when you rent, but you're not paying off a mortgage. So you'll never see that money back. So
Yep.
that's just something that I like to tell people, just to keep in mind. If they don't know what the market's doing, if you buy, you might build equity in 5 years. And if the market dips, it might go back up,
Right.
like we've seen historically. So.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever a bad time to buy. I think you need to buy now, no matter the time. Even if it does become a recession, like we have seen before, then that is the greatest time to buy, because that's when the dip will occur that we never see, and that's what everyone's waiting on. But unfortunately, at those times, the people that hadn't invested prior are a lot of times the ones that are not, financially stable enough to invest at that time either. So I say get ahead of the game and get on the wave and start surfing. That's what I always like to tell people. And but everyone form your own opinions. We're just professionals, been doing this a long time.
Everybody's like the what ifs, and I'm like, just take the leap. In my opinion,
Yeah.
That's what I did personally
Exactly.
with my family. Like, it was a risk, but definitely got a lot of reward out of it. So, just something to think about when you're wanting to buy. And if you have any more questions, whether you're buying or selling, or you just have questions in general, just give us a call. You can call the office or one of our cell phones, which we'll read out on the We Buy Houses section. But,
and please call us.
yeah, please give us a call, give us a text, whatever. Find us on Facebook.
And let us know your opinions on what you think, and we'd be happy to discuss those. We couldn't even do a Q&A if there's enough questions in the comments about what you personally think the home market might do, or what interest rates might do, or even some questions that we didn't touch over. We just basically wanted to talk about the interest versus market value and how they're really interlocked. And when one goes down, one comes up, kind of like Josh says. Every action has a positive and equal reaction. So, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to leave a like, a follow, share, subscribe, comment, do it all. Spend the next 10 minutes doing all that. And then I want to thank Our title sponsor for the episode. Big shout out to Collier Title Company. If you need deed prep, title work, closings, and more, you can give them a call at 270-763-6589. And then for this week's sponsor, We Buy Houses, we can offer cash and close in as little as 2 weeks. Give us a call at 270-945-5416 or 270-945-7189. Thank you.